What's up guys, Ruppy here, bringing you the draft analysis for a brand new league I'm starting up, the Pokemon Battling Association League, or the PBAL. That's a bit of a mouthful. So, we finished our draft. This video is actually coming out a day late. It was supposed to be up on Sunday the 5th. I apologize that it is a bit late, but the previous week was insanely hectic for me between going back to work and selling into that, making sure my round 1 playoff game for IBL was uploaded in time, playing a few other games I needed to get out of the way. It was a bit of a stressful week, and I have had a lot on my plate, so some things, of course, kind of got forgotten about. But it is going up all the same. Hopefully it is not that big of an issue. So, I had a bit of an interesting draft with this league. You're probably noticing the draft slides are not the same as what I did for IBL. I did not design these draft slides, aside from slotting stuff in as where necessary. So, make of that what you will. This is the design I was given to use. I will play with it accordingly. But I still think I came away with a fairly good team. In the draft itself, when they held that, or rather the draft stream, they acknowledged that this feels like a Gen 7 team with a few Gen 8 Mons. And that wasn't my intent, but maybe that's where I feel a little bit of comfort is necessary, because I'm still getting used to the Gen 8 scene. I've had my ups and downs if you've watched my IBL season and my LET season. But Gen 7 was certainly a lot of fun in places. So let's go ahead and go over my team, shall we? Also, I guess I should point out real quick a few things. First off, this league is allowing Gmax, which is an unrestricted Gmax at that, so I get to put items on my Gmax Mons, which I find a bit interesting, considering a lot of leagues are actually going in the direction of banning Gmaxing, now that they've toyed around with it and realized, yeah, it might be a little centralizing. The PBAL's previous season, Gmaxing was actually banned, so now they're allowing it, which I find quite interesting. Also, we are adhering to a post-DLC mindset, so that means I have access to mons that I maybe did not have access to before, and I certainly have new moves I can play around with, and believe me, I'm probably going to have quite a bit of fun with that. The other thing I kind of want to point out is that for the PBAL, I did a bit of a rebranding. I kind of wanted to leave my Columbus SWU alone for this league, let them focus on their current playoff endeavors in IBL, as well as, for any of you who may have missed it, the announcement was also made on Twitter that I have joined the Breejex Battle Royale as well. That draft analysis will be going up later this week, once we have the draft stream for that. But basically, that's where my SWU focus is going to be, so I figured I would do a bit of a new rebranding and try something a little different for this league. So, I introduce you to the Lake Erie Kyurem. Figured I should use one member of my infamous triple threat, Kyurem, Victini, and Kartana, in some capacity. And I figured I could work with the Lake Erie option, since there is well, now they're the Cleveland Monsters, they used to be the Lake Erie Monsters. Anyway, I've done enough chatting about other stuff. Let's get into the teams. I know that's why you're all here, instead of just hearing me just blabber on about other stuff. So for my first draft pick, I actually had the 11th pick out of 12, so I was near the back wheel, which wasn't the most ideal place I would have wanted to be, but I tried to make do with it as best as I could. Obviously, a lot of high power options went off the board early, but there was one mon I was kind of looking at that I really wanted to use. I haven't used it since Gen 6, actually, in draft format. It is a mon I have had fairly good success with when I did use it, the 1 or 2 leagues I pulled that off in. It is also a mon that has given me a lot of trouble. And that is Volcarona. Honestly, I think a lot of people do not realize just yet how dangerous Volcarona truly is in Gen 8 with some of the new toys it got to play with now that it is legal thanks to Isle of Armor. Naturally, it is a strong special attacker at base 135, fairly good special defense too at 105. Base 100 speed puts it at a pretty good speed tier. Obviously, it can boost all of that with Quiver Dance. If I needed to, it is a potential defogger. I might not run it that often, but you never know. I could pull a bulky Volcarona one of these weeks, and you would never know. The one key thing I think people really need to worry about with Volcarona is the item Heavy Duty Boots. Plain and simple, the mere existence of that item has effectively removed Volcarona's biggest weakness, and that is Stealth Rocks. Granted, it does still have its quad weakness to rock in general, but as long as it's got its boots, Volcarona does not care for your Stealth Rocks anymore. So I am actually not as afraid of how this team turned out in some regard because of that. I'm not as worried about hazards, so Volcarona's free to come in, set up, and potentially start cleaning house. For the second round, I decided I wanted to get my Gmax out of the way early. There was a Gmax I was kind of eyeing. I had a couple options I could have taken. Two in particular were Gmax Grimmsnarl and Gmax Hatterene, my Gmaxes from LET and IBL respectively, both of which, well, Grimmsnarl served me alright. It's a mon I certainly needed to get used to more than I did. Hatterene has obviously served me very well in IBL. But I wanted to kind of go in a different direction, because there is a mon that has kind of had a very dominant presence in both of those leagues, and it's a mon that actually pairs very nicely with Volcarona, especially if we're talking Gmax. And that is Gmax Duraludon. The giant building dragon was my decision for Gmax. I'm sure any of you who have followed the IBL have seen Howler use this thing very well. Sven has also used it very well in LET. Both of them are proud members of my front office, as well as very good friends. So I think they both would probably like this pick. It is a strong, again, we're going with a strong special attacker at base 120. At base 115, it's actually a pretty good physical wall as well if I need it to. 85 speed puts it at a fairly decent speed tier to outpace slower things, and it's got the bulk to be able to take, depending on how I EV it, more, take on faster mons. It's got some fairly versatile options as far as what it can run, and it's got things like Stealth Rocks for hazards, if I want to set those up. It has, obviously, Stab. It's got a decent amount of coverage, too. The main reason I grabbed Duraludon is because Duraludon and Volcarona actually cover one another's weaknesses pretty well. So these two could actually be a very formidable tandem, depending on how I play things. And I think they will actually become quite the dynamic duo for me. But to make sure of that, and to kind of create a bit of a threatening trio out of this, not quite my triple threat, but it's definitely got some elements there that represent all three of my original triple threat members. I decided to grab a fairy next, as well as a water type. And I could think of no better mon to fit this role than PreMarina. Another mon I've used in the past with fairly good success, and actually on a team with Volcarona at one point. These two have actually paired up well and proven their worth to me in the past. PreMarina has very good special attack, quite good special defense. It is one of those mons that is actually quite hard to switch into, especially if it's a choice spec set. It's one of those mons that kind of forces you to kind of tailor part of your prep towards either making sure you outspeed it and have something that can destroy it, or have a very good mon dedicated entirely to being a special wall to try to stop it. I think, in that regard, kind of centralizing a bit of prep, PreMarina certainly works, especially since it covers some of Volcarona and Duraludon's weaknesses as well, which certainly helps. Moving on to round out my Fire, Water, Grass core, now that my Fairy Dragon Steel core is complete in only 2 mons, I decided for a special mon, or for a Grass mon. I was gonna kind of sort of stick with a special theme, but not quite. I definitely wanted something that had kind of keeping with the special bulk theme, but also had some speed to it as well, I decided to grab Virizion. At base 129, Virizion actually is a good special wall. Base 108 speed certainly means it's outspeeding quite a bit, and especially things that would try to maybe barely outpace Volcarona. Virizion can be right there to tangle with them. One thing I like about Virizion, much like I do with Cobalion as well, is the fact that both of its offenses are base 90. So Virizion can kind of go either way. I know while Cobalion tends to lean towards the physical, Virizion in that same vein tends to lean more towards special, because I believe it does have somewhat better special options. The fact that I can run Virizion either way gives me some versatility to exploit to try to keep opponents on their toes and prep. Now at this point, I decided my physical defenses are actually looking a little weak, which obviously needs to be addressed. I also kind of wanted a backup rock setter, since I'm probably not going to be relying on the Duraludon as much to set rocks, considering it's my Gmax mon. So something that could be a dedicated rock setter would certainly be nice. And for that, I decided to grab Sandaconda. Sandaconda's a bit of a weird mon. I mean, it's got good attack, and it's got fairly good physical bulk. It's obviously a good rock setter. It has Glare, which can set status in addition to being able to set rocks, so Sandaconda certainly has some good defensive versatility there. And it's got some fairly good options, too, for abilities. I mean, Shedskin is certainly ideal to potentially remove status. Obviously, it's not a guarantee, but the fact that it could is certainly something I can play with. There's also the fact that I have Sandspit, which allows me the capability of being able to set up a weather hazard that could sort of chip away at things, especially since Duraludon is not affected by it. So Duraludon could certainly benefit from Sandaconda giving it something to play with. Sandaconda's a bit of an interesting mon, and I'm quite intrigued in seeing how I'm able to use it. I also ended up grabbing with my following pick something that I think could actually pair well with Sandaconda if I really wanted to be that guy, considering Sandaconda's potential Sand Spit. And also a mon that was fairly fast, kind of going back towards the specially offensive part of the spectrum, but it's a mon that has a lot of versatility that I kind of like, and that's Heliolisk. Heliolisk is a weather mon to some degree, as far as its abilities are concerned. Obviously with Dry Skin, it can sit in the rain and gets HP back. Also, that kind of gives it a water immunity. Solar Power allows me to abuse Sun if need be. There is, of course, Sand Veil, which is the option I was referring to as far as something I could exploit with Sandspit if I really wanted to be that guy. But base 109 speed makes it the fastest mon on this roster, just barely outpacing Virizion. Might seem a bit odd, but I wanted to make sure I had at least 3 mons that were at least base 100 or above to kind of balance out my speed tiers a bit before I started going towards the lower end of the spectrum. Base 109 special attack is not bad as well, and Heliolisk certainly has a lot of versatility in its moveset it can pull off. Not to mention strong stab options, and pivoting with Volt Switch, which is always appreciated in my hands. Now, as we get towards the lower tiers here, I'm starting to realize that I might be in a bit of trouble as far as hazards are concerned. And there wasn't much left to kind of address that on the board. So, when it came to removing hazards, one mon I kind of gravitated towards that I've kind of used on and off again outside of draft format to varying degrees of success, and a mon that is always an interesting option to play with whenever it's brought up. That is Xatu. Obviously, the main attraction to Xatu is the fact that it has Magic Bounce, which means I can reflect hazards back. It also is a good defogger in that same respect, if hazards do end up going up somehow. Base 95 speed is actually not bad, and a base 95 special attack is certainly usable. Xatu also gives me a mon that is capable of wish support if necessary. It can set screens. Xatu certainly has a fair amount of options that I think could help bring this team together if I play my cards right. The next mon I decided to grab kind of addresses a bit of a... I was pointing out in the draft stream that I had a bit of a ground weakness, which I kind of see, but at the same time, I kind of don't. Though, to be fair, a ground weakness is nothing new to me for anyone who's known me in draft for quite some time. Somehow, I always find ways around it, even if I draft a ground weak team. But to kind of address that, as well as give me another form of hazards, I decided to grab Wheezing. Now, this is normal Wheezing, not Galarian Wheezing, so unfortunately I do not have Defog possibility here. I was running low on points. Wheezing certainly fit as a poison type, and, well, I believe Galarian Wheezing was actually a little more expensive point-wise, since this was my second Tier 4 pick, I believe. But Wheezing certainly brings some interesting things to the table. And it's got fairly decent offenses, and obviously base 120, it's a great physical wall, which was certainly needed at this point to some degree. It can set Toxic Spikes, which certainly keeps opposing teams on their toes. It can alternate between Levitate to give it a ground immunity, as well as this new Neutralizing Gas ability, which can nullify abilities, which is certainly helpful under the right circumstances. It's got some good options for status and being able to recover HP with Pain Split while chipping away at opposing mons. Normally, I'm not one to really play well with more passive mons, but I think Wheezing is in an interesting ballpark where it could kind of get away with that, and maybe I could find some good use for it. Advancing onwards with our draft. Getting down to the final three now. A mon I decided to grab that has actually kind of served me well to an interesting degree, and I think actually fit kind of nicely with what I was going for, especially with the DLC, was Dusknoir. Dusknoir brings some interesting things to the table. Obviously, it's got some priority with Shadow Sneak and Sucker Punch, which is certainly appreciated. Base 135 in both defenses makes this thing a great all-purpose wall. Base 100 attack is certainly usable. At 45 speed, it is the slowest mon on this team, but it also has access to Trick Room, which could certainly become an option I can play with when necessary. Dusknoir also got a couple of new toys through the DLC that I think, under the right circumstances, could actually be a lot more threatening than people might give it credit for a Tier 5 mon. So we will see how that certainly plays out. Rounding out the remainder of my points, my next pick is a mon that is also kind of familiar to me. It's one I haven't used in quite some time, but it's one I'm certainly looking forward to trying again. And that is Pangoro. This stupidly strong panda was quite a staple of a really old team of mine that I believe it alternated with X-Cloud on that team as being just a mon that, this thing in general is just a mon that is very hard to switch into. Base 124 attack, especially if you give it a choice band, this thing is capable of punching huge holes in a team very easily. It also has very good abilities that I could kind of alternate between depending on the situation for whatever matchup I'm in. Obviously, Iron Fist boosts the power of all of its punching moves, which also includes Bullet Punch as priority. Mold Breaker allows it to simply ignore abilities, which could be crucial under the right circumstances. Scrappy allows this thing to smash ghost types with its fighting moves if I really wanted to do so, which could certainly be interesting. Or even, so I think Pangoro's actually got some good use here. Plus, at 58 speed, it is on the lower end of things, but it could actually benefit from Dusknoir's Trick Room for that very reason as well, which certainly makes Pangoro a lot more threatening. And for my last pick, I had a ton of points left over, and the idea of Duraludon being my dragon wasn't 100% sitting well with me, so I decided to grab another dragon, another mon I haven't used in quite some time, and a mon that is also very frickin' hard to switch into, that being Haxorus. Getting Haxorus with my last pick honestly feels like I kind of got a bit of a late steal. Why this thing went undrafted up until we came back to me for my last pick, I will never know. Because base 97 speed puts it at a very good speed tier. Base 147 attack makes this thing an absolute nightmare to try to switch into from the physical end of things. It has Dragon Dance, which makes it even harder to switch into, as well as Swords Dance. Oh, and let's not forget that Haxorus also got some new toys when Gen 8 came out. Like, say, Priority in First Impression. Whoever thought giving Haxorus First Impression was a good idea should probably reevaluate their status in the workplace, because that is utter insanity. So, that is going to be the team. Obviously, it does have its flaws, but I think I've got enough here to work with that I can make this team work and potentially go far with it in the PBAL. And I'm certainly very excited to get to toy with this team and see how well it does. So, thank you guys so very much for watching. I have been Ruppy. Hopefully you will support my Lake Erie Kyurem and give them as much love as you do my Columbus Swoo. And I will see you guys next time. Take care.